studies have shown when you take goals and you identify them, that you increase them by combining some sort of visualization. So because the unconscious mind doesn't know between make-believe or real. So when we see the goal as though we have achieved it, and we do a technique in the...
Are you at a point in your life where you know you need a change but find yourself always falling back into bad habits?
Or perhaps you're not sure where to start.
In today's episode, we explore how to embrace change and get comfortable with the uncomfortable so you can find the beauty on the other side of discomfort.
Stay to the end to find out how one person created generational change that is helping millions of vision-impaired people around the world. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Rewrite Your Story, the podcast where change begins with you.
We're your hosts, Stephen and Sharlene.
As professional coaches and mentors trained in various modalities, we have helped hundreds of people
Bridge the gap between the person they are
and the person they want to be.
We bring you conversations with real people who have overcome real setbacks.
You will walk away with practical steps to find more clarity, alignment, and success in any area you want to improve.
So join us and discover how you have the power to overcome, to change, and to rewrite your story.
So pick up the pen. Your new chapter starts now.
Well, today, Sharlene, we're talking about change and how to motivate yourself for change. And really, change is part of rewriting your story because, nothing happens
without change.
And nothing happens if nothing happens. And one of the most interesting or frequent questions we get asked by the audience is, well, I know that I want to rewrite my story, but how do I change, or how do I stay focused or motivated by change? And I remember many years ago, and I think I've quoted this before, John Maxwell in his book, Today Matters, he states that the decision is made once.
And acted on daily.
But acted on daily. And that's the same with change. We can make a decision to change once.
That's right.
But sometimes it's the unlearning of habits.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it. It's the unlearning of habits, isn't it?
Yeah, because our habits, if you look at our lives and what motivates us, we are a sum total of our habits or our daily actions.
That's right.
So looking at it in that point of view can really motivate us to change.
Yes.
When we realize that change is a matter of unlearning habits, relearning new habits, making that decision once, but acting upon that decision daily. So in your opinion, Sharlene, working with as a counselor, and I can come to it as a coaching point of view, why do you think change is so difficult?
I think a lot of people have either gone through either a lot of trauma, bad experiences with change. They may have had some bad changes that were out of their control. And it's a big, scary world for them, like the fact that they have to change. There's also, if you look at it, there's a lot of psychological conditions that people find it hard to embrace change. They really need to have a constant routine. And if anything changes, it just throws them completely out.
So it's more like the unknown of change or the uncertainty of change?
The uncertainty, the fear, the sense of not being safe.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is realizing that the resistance to change is one of the first areas we need to change.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at it from a coaching point of view, it is the neural pathways that have been created through that habit and redirecting or reforming those neural pathways.
That's right.
And one of the things that we can look at is things like a simple swish pattern. Now, we won't go into what a swish pattern is here, but, like something really simple as a swish pattern can reprogram and form brand new neural pathways that allow people to create change.
That's right.
And it's the deassociation of the habit to that neuro pathway.
And it's almost like, it seems like magic, but it's actually our brain just doing all the work for us.
Yeah. And change can actually be really simple with coaching.
Yeah.
And techniques that are available. For instance, there are some great techniques that we use, one of them being a swish pattern, parts integration, a few things like that can really look at change. But then you spoke about the triggering or going to the past event. So something, for instance, like your blueprint and re-looking at that blueprint within your mind. And again, when we look at blueprint, it's just a unconscious pathway that has been created that we want to change and de-associate with.
That's right. I mean, if you look at it, Stephen, like our brains, like our human brains are focused and like, I guess, created to try and keep us safe, right? It looks like a change. Sometimes it is taken as a threat. And that resistance to change can come as the brain's mechanism to keep us safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Potential threats.
Absolutely. Because when we look at the prime objectives of the unconscious mind, for instance, the unconscious mind always takes the path of least resistance.
That's right.
And we'll always look for the easiest way to get results. So if we know that the unconscious mind looks at things literally as a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, whatever it is, it's going to try to take the shortcut in everything. And sometimes change, there is no shortcut. And I think people need to get over the idea that change is easy, because the decision to change is easy. The working out of the change is not easy. And it, reminds me of, and I don't even know where it is, but I believe it was Paul that wrote, work out your own salvation. Now we know that salvation happens in an instant when we accept Christ as our savior. But why would Paul say, work it out yourself?
Yeah.
So there's that working out when we change.
Yeah. So it's like salvation is just the beginning of the story. It's not the end of the story. Right?
Exactly, right? When we accept Christ. So I think we change. There's a working out that is required. And, I think if we look at the prime directives of the unconscious mind, always seeking the path of least resistance, then we need to be able to work with our unconscious mind in that area, but also know at a conscious level that there is a working out.
That's right.
So maybe what we need to do is introduce the least resistance to the working out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I think it's confirmed in Romans 12:2. It says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God and what's good is acceptable and his perfect will. So with any change, even the Bible says it's got to do with the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
And so working at that unconscious level to avoid the resistance of change is important.
That's right. It made me think, Stephen, like a lot of people are resistant to change because they think they have to just automatically stop everything that they're doing and embrace something in order to be able to embrace something new. And that sometimes seems scary because it's something so familiar to them, right? But I always like to, sometimes when I'm working with clients, just to introduce something new every day. Just one thing new. It doesn't mean they have to think about getting rid of anything, but just add something to it. Just insert that in somewhere where they would usually do something else instead and put a pause in between that pattern.
So it's a pattern interrupt. Yeah. So learning how to pattern interrupt yourself.
Yes.
So I think one of the key takeaways in this is recognizing that resistance to change is actually normal.
Yeah.
We all resist what we don't know, but understand that the reason behind the resistance can actually help you address and overcome the change needed to rewrite your story.
Absolutely. You know what? Viktor Frankl actually says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves.
That's powerful. And I know you absolutely love that book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
And use Viktor Frankl a lot. And, if we look at, for our audience that don't know the background of his story, do you want to just tell them a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, he's actually a doctor. So he's like a psychologist who's somehow gotten himself into the concentration camps. It's back in those days of the concentration camps. And it's his experience of seeing the people in those environments and the difference between the people who had to develop and had a reason to live and to get through it. They were able to preserve their faith. They were able to preserve their positive outlook and still find a way to get through that and survive. Whereas a lot of the people who felt like they didn't have any more reason to live, and sometimes they might have started with a reason to live, but then it sort of got lost along the way. And they either resorted to animal behavior and just allowed themselves to get lost in the whole process of devastation.
Yeah. And if we look at that, the research from the American Psychological association actually highlights that understanding the reason for resistance can help individuals manage more effectively.
Wow, it's pretty powerful stuff. So I guess the second point is finding your why, the power of purpose. So let's have a look at some of the key points.
So I think identifying your why gives you a compelling reason to change. You know, changing for the sake of change because you saw it on social media, or, you know, it's the latest trend, or it's what everyone's doing. It's not a strong enough why. And,
it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. And we go back to last week's episode. Chad spoke about the father who wanted to lose weight and would not sustain it. And it wasn't until his daughter was in need. And I thought that was such a great story. You know, it wasn't until his daughter was in need.
And he couldn't provide.
And he couldn't provide. And the doctor said, if you want to donate your kidney to her, you need to lose, I don't know how much weight, but you need to lose all this weight. And within a short period of time, he lost it because it was life and death. It was his daughter's life. And so the why became stronger.
Yes, it became bigger than his how, right?
It became bigger than his how. So purpose provides direction and motivation in challenging times. And we really need to be aware of that.
That's right.
So we need to have a way to reflect on our own goals and values and ask ourselves why we want change and how it aligns with our life's purpose. Do you know, I know, for instance, for me, when I'm away from my purpose in life, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So how do you know your purpose? It's what brings you joy. You know, some people struggle with purpose and finding their purpose. And again, it's about what motivates you. What actually can you spend hours and hours doing and time just gets away from you and you're so excited doing it, you know? Yeah. What is your take on that?
You know, and that's one way to look at it. And also sometimes some people might actually need to have a different approach where some people don't know how to find out, you know, what floats their boat, what like excites them. Maybe they find it just difficult. They've had some bad experiences in the past and they're afraid to find something that they're passionate about. But what they could look at is what would happen if they don't change? What is going to happen if they continue doing the same thing day in, day out and look at the compounding results? You know, for example, someone who needs to get healthy and they have a very unhealthy lifestyle, what would happen if they continue with that unhealthy lifestyle? And find out, like, they'll usually come up with the answers themselves, you know, and how badly do they not want that? So sometimes it needs to start with what they don't want to be able to find what they do want.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So if I find actually what don't I want or what do I have right now in my life that is actually not serving me or serving others around me, and flip that to what actually is it that I want.
Yeah.
And then find your purpose in that and create the strong enough why in that.
That's right.
Because I think what you said before, your why has got to become, when your why is stronger than the how,
yes,
the how reveals itself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's really, you know, key to finding out. You know, I love what Jeremiah 29 says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. And I think, you know, if the Almighty has good plans for us, for a good life, then how much more can we align ourselves with that? And again, it's about finding that alignment with his purpose and aligning that with our purpose.
That's right. So what are some of the takeaways?
I think a sense of purpose can really fuel our motivation and keep us focused on our goals.
Yeah, and regularly revisiting your why to stay motivated. So making sure that your why is bigger than any how. Instead of thinking about how am I going to get through this? How am I going to do this? Thinking about all those little steps. You think about what is it? What is it? Like, what is your vision for what you would like to see happen? And how big is that reason? How deep is that reason?
Yeah. Again, I know you like Viktor Frankl and, you know, one of his quotes is, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how.
Absolutely.
And I think that aligns perfectly with what we're saying. When the why is stronger than the how, you know, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how.
It reminds me, there's that movie called Unbroken. Was it with that guy who was in the war, and he went through this whole being captured by the Japanese, and he was tortured.
The athlete.
Yes, the athlete. And his whole motto through the whole thing was, if I can take it, I can make it.
The Italian athlete.
Yes, the Italian athlete.
Yes, Italian-American athlete.
Right.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And his whole motto through the whole thing, his whole mantra throughout that whole experience of suffering, being tortured, all these different experiences, his whole mantra was, if I can take it, I can make it.
Yeah.
So every time he thought he was going to be crushed, every time he thought he couldn't go one more step further, he just said that to himself, if I can take it, I can make it.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a really good point, is sometimes having these one-liners can really help you in the why, staying focused on the why. Like, I know for me, when have resistance coming my way, or something's not going the way I want it to go and there's resistance, my one-liner is, this is only for a season.
Yes.
It's only a season. Sometimes it's
a really long season.
Long season. But it is a season.
Yeah.
You know? And we have a good friend of ours, and I know her one-liner is, this too shall pass, you know? And sometimes having these one-liners, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
Yes, it's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I know that's the one you use a lot. And, just having these one-liners can really just be a pattern interrupt when you're going down that valley of despair, but also keep you focused and can actually serve as an anchor.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important, I reckon, to often have a visual reminder for ourselves, even if it's just a bracelet or something that we can hold on to that just reminds us during those moments of traumatic experiences. Because the fact is, when someone goes through trauma, it's our brain has this little rational side of things on the top. And then as soon as we've gone through something traumatic, it sort of flips off. You've heard that term, flip out. That's the rational brain flipping out. And we're left with the hippocampus, which is responsible for the memory. And it's telling us that we're experiencing that as now. And the amygdala is just warning us, sending off those signals that, hey, you're in danger, you're in danger. So that's why the rational brain is flipped off, because the amygdala is just going crazy. And it's telling us that, hey, something's not right. But it's just a memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so good.
And so that's why it's good to have those visual cues to help us bring us back into that moment of calm and remind us, okay, this is what I need to remember to tell myself. Because otherwise we forget about these resources that we have, because all we're thinking about is this memory that we have. Yeah,
that's really good. And a couple of, probably a while ago, we did an episode on toxic positivity and the danger of the trap of the law of attraction, not the danger, but the trap of it causing more stress. And we spoke about, vision boards are good if used in the right purpose. So are you saying that this could be an area where a vision board can refocus?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it depends on the situation. You might need to have something smaller, you know what I mean? Just a small little token that reminds you of that one statement.
Very good. I think if one of the books on discovering your why, or one of there's a great YouTube out there from Simon Sinek on, It Starts With a Why, but he's also written the book, It Starts With a Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. And I think that is a really good starting point for anyone who is struggling with their why, or struggling to find their why. Even if you don't read the book, watch the YouTube. It Starts With a Why, because it's a great place to start, and it's a great place to get practical with. I think another step, Sharlene, is another practical approach is defining your goals or setting goals. And, I personally don't like SMART goals. Yeah. And the reason why I don't like SMART goals is I think it's so over-taught that it's familiar now that people don't actually take it for granted, and people don't actually implement it. because, you think SMART goals, it's specific, measurable, achievable,
And who's gonna
realistic,
something, right?
and timelines, So I think, sometimes when something, what's that saying? Familiarity breeds contempt.
That's right.
So sometimes when we hear something so many times, we actually become null to it.
Yeah.
So I think lately I've started to use the W.O.P.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop, the W.O.P goal.
Like a party.
Yeah. And that is, W.O.P stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. Okay.
Awesome.
So the first step is, what is it? What do you wish when setting a goal? So what is your
deepest desire?
What is
right?
what's that deepest desire that you want? And then what's the outcome? So what would be the best outcome if your wish could come? What's that going to give you? Because a lot of people actually don't realize that it's not the actual goal that we want. It is it's the feeling that the goal gives us. Okay. So by actually knowing the outcome or the feeling, that way we can actually achieve that and identify that a lot quicker and actually manifest that or work towards it, whatever you want to call it, or achieve that. Then you need to look at actually, what are the obstacles?
Yeah. Well, that's a very realistic way of looking at it, right?
Yeah. So what's going to stand in your way? See, SMART goals doesn't really look at the obstacles. And so what happens is when someone sets a SMART goal is when that obstacle comes in their way, they actually run away or they crumble under the pressure.
Yeah. Right.
Does that make sense? So there's no forward planning of what could go wrong.
Yeah.
So when setting goals, we need to look at the obstacles. Now, the obstacles can be internal or can be external.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be those habits that we haven't recreated.
Yeah.
It could be those neurological pathways that we need to reform. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are those obstacles? And then the plan, what can we do to overcome these obstacles?
Okay. Yes.
So why does W.O.O.P work? It actually combines the positive thinking with realistic planning.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And helps to identify and address the potential challenges of proactivity.
Yeah. So a very proactive way of addressing what you want to happen and also addressing what could come up in the meantime and how to address that so that you're not caught unaware when those challenges come, but knowing how can I prepare for that? What other avenues? It's almost like being able to think laterally. So what are the other ways that I can get around this? Can I go over it? Can I go under it? Can I go around it? Can I build the bridge?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's really good. And, I guess while you're...
We get a sledgehammer. Well, I'm not encouraging to do that to people, right?
Sometimes you feel like it. Anyway, that's another story. But do you know what it reminds me of when you were saying that, the triple P, what is it? Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. That's the Aussie way of saying it.
Yeah.
What is the proper way? Prior preparation prevents poor performance.
Yes.
Yes. With that, we in Australia add a bit more P's. It really is about that, isn't it? If you're looking at the obstacle, then you're preventing the poor performance because you're already equipped for it. So the practical way is to write down your W.O.P for each goal. Okay. And then reflect on your W.O.P regularly to stay focused and motivated, because also obstacles are fluid. They change.
Yeah.
Goals change. They're fluid as well. So, if we looked at a classic example, if you set a goal in 2019, towards the end of the 2019, that you were going to go to the gym and get fit and things like that. Well, you got hit with an obstacle in 2020 where you weren't allowed to leave your home. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and that was an obstacle that no one saw coming. But also, it's things also now make our goals easier to achieve. Like, who would have thought that AI could help you rewrite your story?
Yes.
And so AI is a great way, ChatGPT is a great way now to do research, to identify, but also if you're rewriting your business story, it's a skill you want to learn because it's actually going to propel and speed up your performance in that area. So goals need to be fluid and need to be visited quite regularly.
That's right. So one of the biblical perspective to be that in Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established.
That's right. Your plans will be established means you actually got to make a plan.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not mocking or degrading people that, have that way of looking that they don't need to make plans because God's going to direct their way. Hey, if that's where you are, that's great. That's not where we are. We believe in setting goals and then asking and committing them to the Lord, So W.O.O.P goals help you stay grounded by combining aspiration with realistic planning and addressing the obstacles head on, and that increases your chance for success.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I remember you were talking once in one of our goal setting seminars about making realistic goals. And one of those goals that people might sometimes say is that is unrealistic is I want to have a healthy, loving relationship, right? A romantic relationship with my wife or spouse or whatever. But that's not in your control.
No, it's not. You can't make a goal for change that you are not 100% responsible
That's
for.
right.
So, for instance, people that set goals around, I want a great relationship. Well, that's not 100% in your control. You set a goal that the kind of partner that you're going to be.
That's right.
And what you're going to work as a partner, and then
what you're going to bring to the table.
What you're going to bring to the table. And then maybe one of those goals is having time to sit down with your partner and analyzing the relationship and discussing, if I bring this, what are you going to bring? That's what they're in control in. It's not about demanding what you want from them, because again, you're not in control of that.
Yeah.
And what we're not in control, we can't control.
Yeah. I mean, and if you have to control someone to try and love you, that's not real love at the end of the day. You're just asking for a robot, really.
No. And maybe, Sharlene, it could be simply as, if we look at the loving relationship goal, usually people set those goals when their needs aren't fulfilled in the relationship.
Yeah.
So maybe part of the goal is identifying what your needs are in a relationship, voicing those needs. Maybe the goal is open communication in order that you can both work on that relationship together.
Give the other person opportunity to bring something to the plate rather than them having to read your mind about what you need.
Yeah. And if we look at the W.O.O.P goals, studies have shown when you take goals and you identify them, that you increase them by combining some sort of visualization. So, because again, the unconscious mind doesn't know between make-believe or real. So when we see the goal as though we have achieved it, and we do a technique in the blueprint, reprint, that helps you and your unconscious mind believe that you have already there at the fulfillment of your goal. And I think that is a crucial part. A lot of people set goals, but they don't see themselves in the possession of the goal, nor do they, but most importantly, feel the feelings of the possession of the goal. Like, what are you going to feel?
Desperation, trying to get there because they're not there yet.
Yeah.
In the feeling.
And so visualization and the feeling is so important when it comes to goal. And I think the final key to change and to motivate yourself and to keep motivated is community.
Yeah.
We speak about it all the time. Having your support system, either with a coach or a mentor. But I also want to share that your goal does not need to be shared with everybody.
That's right.
Okay. You want to choose wise counsel, wise mentorship when sharing your goal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Trusted, reliable sources. You wouldn't go to, you wouldn't want to go to a plumber for accounting advice, right?
No,
unless they're an accountant themselves, right? I don't know. Who knows? But, you wouldn't want to go to someone who had experience in one area and no experience in what you actually need, telling you what to do in the area that you need. That's nothing to do with them.
Yeah. And I think we've spoken about this before. I think sometimes when we share our goal out of excitement, those closest to you tend to discourage you because they don't want to see you hurt. or they don't want to see you not achieving that goal. So it's easier for me to discourage you in the pursuit of the goal than encourage you in the pursuit of the goal.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important that, sometimes sharing a goal should be done with a coach or a mentor. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Rather than family and friends. Because human nature is sometimes we encourage people to achieve their goals, but then when they're in the pursuit of them, we discourage them because the change in them does not meet our needs.
That's right. So it's more about them. Now and then, like some people may be fortunate enough to have really supportive family that are all there for them and encourage them to pursue their dreams and to go ahead and do that and let them know that they're there for you in the background. But unfortunately, the truth is that not everybody's like that. Not everyone has a good, healthy family. Some people have toxic family members, you know what I mean? And that doesn't mean you don't love them, but you just need to choose who you share your goals with.
Yeah. And there are a lot of support networks out there. Like if we look at Facebook, there are a lot of Facebook groups now dedicated to specific goals and things like that where people encourage them. And, we have the Rewrite Your Story closed group where people share their goals and their achievements and we become their cheerleaders and help them along that journey. So if you don't have a support group, feel free to join the Rewrite Your Story Facebook group as well. So joining a group is so important. And you know what? I love what 1 Thessalonians says, 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing. And I think that's the key. We want to really encourage people. So if we look at that, a strong support system can provide the motivation, encouragement, but not only that, the accountability, which is something that we hate, to be held accountable because it's used in such a negative connotation. But, I go back to Chad last week and how he spoke about discipline. And sometimes we just need those people to get around that and, be disciplined. And I can't remember if it was Chad or you, but we were talking about it afterwards. And I think you mentioned, well, if you look at the word discipline, it comes from the word disciple, and it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, looking at that as well. So if we look at discipline and accountability and disciple, it's almost as though, we're becoming a disciple of a mentor who's walked that path before us.
Yeah. Submitting your plans to someone who can give you clear direction.
Look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. So, Keller says alone you can do so little and together we can do so much.
Yeah.
We can't do everything all by ourselves. Otherwise we would be on our own planet or something, but we wouldn't be with other people.
Yeah. And let me give a little bit background on that saying. So Helen Keller, people know, was blind and, she I think she was blind and deaf. You're right? And it's a very old movie around Helen Keller. But that particular saying was, if you're aware of Lions Club International, they're a huge organization. And that was in the, beginning stages of Lions Club. I don't know the full story. They either approached Helen Keller or she was a speaker there. And they became ambassadors for the blind. And they became, the vision is a big part of their ethos, to raise money for the blind, to raise money for, like we look at Australia, we look at the cornea transplant is run by the Lions. It's funded by the Lions at the Sydney Eye Hospital. And so Helen Keller back then gave them a mantle to basically help the blind. And that saying was, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. And so she's actually addressing the Lions Club International. And now we're talking about over 100, like Lions Club is over 100 years, and they have clubs throughout the world. Yeah. And they still stand upon that quote that Helen Keller gave them so many years ago.
Yeah.
And so vision, like I know at one stage you did something with the Lions for Vision, like you were one of their vision ambassadors and did fundraising.
That's a while ago now.
It's a while ago now. But remember you did that bit of fundraising and was their ambassador for that. They have taken that mantle, that discipline, that discipleship, and we're mentored by her. And still it continues generation after generation. Yeah. So change and rewriting your story is a generational thing, not just a now thing.
Yeah. So it doesn't just affect you, it affects many generations to come.
And Helen Keller, and that one quote that she said to the lions is proof of generational change.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that's so important. So if we look at, you know, studies, we know that support systems work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, Sharlene, what would you like to, as summing this episode up, what would you like to encourage our audience?
You know, I think really learn to see change as a friend. Yes, some changes aren't always great, but there's other areas in our life that it will impact on very profoundly positive way that we didn't realize could happen. A lot of change can be uncomfortable at first, but when we learn to embrace it and get comfortable with the discomfort, you'll find that the beauty happens on the other side of that comfort, out of our comfort zone.
That's great. Beauty happens on the other side of our comfort zone.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewrite Your Story podcast.
We hope you found this episode enlightening.
For more information on the topics discussed, please visit our website at stephenandsharlene.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, share it with your friends, and follow us on social media at Stephen and Sharlene.
Until next time, stay informed and inspired.
This is Stephen and Sharlene signing off from the Rewrite Your Story podcast. Thank you and stay blessed.